these cities, these cities that we have in our study area is affected agriculture and reduced our agriculture area. And another thing that we see that there is not a lot of trees in this area. The trees that we can see that are mostly in the basin of River Pool, and they are not natural trees. They are mostly handmade trees. People and the government grow these trees, and they are in a row and grid. And we don't see a lot of trees in this area. Okay.
In this slide, we try to indicate the direction of urban expansion and their orientation. According to the analysis of the communication road, cities developed more inclined to the southern parts of Via Emilia and also in the by-roads bounds. If we consider Piacenza and Castello San Giovanni as polar cities, that during the time other cities developed in the middle to provide services to the roads. And also following the increase of population, cities have expanded inclined to the south and the nearest poles.
In this slide, we are going to show some architectonic analysis and skylines, which are considering the areas of in between, such as the dots that are playing around. You can find out the both density of the land and aerospace density, which is the significant spatial area which we can define how the city is going to improve and how the skyline has the potentials for developments in the past 20 years. In this slide, we have considered San Nicolo, Rotofreno, and Sarmato for the cities which are located in between, and we didn't consider the Piacenza and Castello San Giovanni because these two are the poles, and we are going to focus more on the areas of in between.
In this slide, we want to talk about the morphology. After our analysis, we understand that in each city we have different kind of morphology. And as you can see in the map, it is obvious that the repetition is the most common morphology that we have in the historical part of each city. And another most popular is island. And we have island in some industrial zone, and new houses placed in the new part of each city.
Demographic trend is available based on the data of 20 years ago, 1991 to 2011, that it's applied for evaluating the current population. This percentage can also apply on current population for evaluating the demographic trend of 2031. The studies represent that in between cities, San Nicolo, Rotofreno, and Sarmato will have dramatically increase in population, and but in the other hand, Piacenza, as the biggest city in this region, will have a reduction in demographic trend, that it's about 2%, that this number is the lowest demographic trend in comparison with other cities.
In this map also you can find out the trends which we mentioned in another graphic way. And here is about it.
According to population trend, we calculate new services through 5 steps, and due to population development, there are two kinds of expansion. In terms of Piacenza, you can see there is no new inhabitants, so we don't have new surfaces. For the other four cities, we have three kinds of increase based on number of floors. For the first one, Euro housing scenario, we calculate floor from 3 to 7. And for single family housing, we calculate from 1 to 3. And for our housing, it's over 7.
This map has two parts to analyze the commute flow between different cities and inside city using map and histogram. In the map, we can easily find that the commute flow from our city to Piacenza with a highest part. In the histogram, Catania San Giovanni is the history in the inside commute. So in the whole map, we can make a conclusion on the attraction of the each city. Piacenza is the most popular city to go than other cities. Also, we can easily find as for the Sarmato waterfront and the clandestine, they are affected here by the Piacenza, as the Castel San Giovanni is not affected by the Piacenza.
Since there are a lot of empty dwellings in our study area, so we are thinking about the possibilities that some new habitants may live in the old dwellings. So we evaluate the current empty dwellings by 4 factors. First, people tend to live in dwellings which is new and in good or excellent condition. So we evaluate building qualities and ages. Second, people tend to choose dwellings in densely populated areas, so we choose some areas with relatively high population density. And the third is the distribution of empty dwellings. We select some areas with sufficient empty dwellings. And finally, by intersecting all the 4 layers, we can get some areas with livable empty dwellings. Then we got the number of livable empty dwellings in each city. Then we use our calculation to predict the final business as usual scenarios. Based on the number of empty dwellings we got in the previous step, we can assume that how many people can live in the empty dwellings. So in our new prediction, in our new calculation, we divided new habitants into 2 parts: population in new dwellings and population in old dwellings. And our new calculation also based on this assumption.
And according to historical maps and commuter flows and livable empty dwellings, we define 3 kinds of city expansion. First, Castel San Giovanni. You can see the trend is from inside to outside. And for Sarmato, Rotofreno, Clandestino, the trend is along the road direct to Piacenza, and the third is Piacenza, no expansion. And we can see from this map how bad it would be in 2031. The blue one is livable empty dwellings, and the orange one is new surface we should have. And this is our suggestion. We consider Castel San Giovanni will have a better future than other cities in our study area, and the other 3 cities might keep inhabitants in their own cities and adjust industrial structure for more jobs. And for the biggest city in our study area, Piacenza, it should attract inhabitants from overlay cities, let's say like more big cities, and we should be using the empty dwellings for some new uses, like urban services. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you for your presentation. All of you have worked together with this because the presentation has not been done by all of you, so there's a question. Okay. I appreciate your structure and also the quality of some topics that you cover. In particular, I appreciate very much the reflection about the vacant dwelling and how this could play an important role in the scenario, the future scenario. So I appreciate very much this topic, as well as when you introduce the interaction between built and other issues, for example, environmental interaction and so on. I have only some remarks about the environmental interaction. You speak about agricultural trees and protecting landscape, but it's true that you work on build, yeah. But it's not. I'm a little bit. I'm wondering if it's so important this distinction between agricultural trees, at the scale trees is forest, and the problem is a nominal problem.
Okay, because it's not forest, they are mostly great trees that are, appropriate, yes. Yeah, it's a little bit hard one. But, but we should know that, okay, our city is growing, and maybe this city, if it grows, it affects our agriculture area and utilized area that is under the agriculture.
The interaction is clear. My question is about the items that you take into account in this interaction, because agriculture is everything unicum. Pioppetti is new infrastructure, because Pioppetti, I don't know if I make a mistake, is a tree that is plant for productive issues, so it's not forest. So my question is, why is so relevant trees and Pioppetti not, for example, divide among different qualities of crops in agriculture and so on? This is the question.
Yeah. Mostly, as I said, that mostly we are trying to say how the built area is going to affect this, because we have a decrease in our...
Clear, but my question is not enough. The second...
If you that's the one. That's what.
The second question is about land air space density. It's very interesting, this topic. The next one, I think.
Next one.
We are speaking about the title is land air space density.
Here.
It's interesting, but I not very well understood how you define airspace density, because the border of the airspace so is a skyline, okay?
Yeah, the first.
And the second question is about this. At the bottom is the different materials that characterize urban spaces.
The bottom light. I've put some legend.
I make the last question, so I give you the microphone. The last question is about morphology. You introduced some pattern, but it's difficult to understand the criteria that you use in identifying this pattern. For example, island describe very different situations, and repetitions are often more closer to some islands that you show us than from other typologies. So to be clear, if the pattern of morphologies are clear, can be used also in the project. If you introduce a morphology pattern with not so clear differentiation, I'm not sure that it's so useful. So if, for example, in the pattern, you call island and you call repetition. So, for example, island, in my opinion, this is a repetition island, a repetition pattern. More than, for example, the third, in which I can see the similar build that is in repetition. So I'm not sure about the criteria that you use for defining this different situation. But if it's not clear, I'm wondering if you can use this pattern as an analytical and design tool.
So back to the first question about the aerospace. Actually, we are all the group mates are foreigner except our friend Minje, and we don't know anything about the maximum rise of the city into these middle areas. So we consider the high rise. We consider the high rise as the most high rise building in each city as the top, as the level of the sky, and we consider the positive point, the positive area that will be considered through this bar chart. It might be, for example, for the city San Nicolo, we had a 9-story building in south, into the north to the east arcs, and we consider this as the top of the aerospace density. And we have analyzed this particular item just to know about the third phase, when we are going to infilling strategy and to reduce and recycle the weight. And considering the second question you have asked, the 3 charts are legend by the 4 type of the material. The first one is the public land use. The second one is the private. The bold one is the built up, and there is a few water on the bridge. I think it's more obvious, in the printed version. And to go to the patterns. Yes, I think if we going inside to the micro scale, I agree that the first one is more repeated than the third one. But we consider also the way that city expand, that this part of the city, this part of these buildings are isolated from the other core of the city. So there is an island, and into the island we have the reputation. But I'm not sure which scale is relevant to our project. We should consider the island or we should consider the reputation. No.
I think that if island describe not only an isolated urban settlement, but also inside a well-defined urban settlement, a part that is characterized by quite defined morphological structure, are both island and could be described in a proper way, show us what means island in these 2 different situations. But if, as I introduced some week before, this kind of pattern, morphological pattern, are not defined in the literature review in a very structured way as in the typology analysis with, non so, casa in linea, casatore in inglese, non so dirlo. So, all of these interpretations are to be defined with
The names.
with the name and describe quite well which is the morphological criteria that refer to this different typology. If I look only to your description, it's difficult, no? So for emphasize your thinking, in my opinion, you have to redraw this map to allows us to interpret. So, for example, if there are different areas of repetition, okay, but if area of repetition are 100 and different one from the other are not pattern, okay?
Yeah.
Because
Segregated
pattern
areas.
must allow us to describe the complexity of the urban settlement with 4 or 5 typologies. If for the repetition area you have 21 different situations are not pattern.
Yes.
It's true that it's a simplification process, but if you would like to use pattern, you have to go in this direction. Otherwise, you don't use this tool and describe the city in another way. But my question is also how to use this pattern. Because if you describe the complexity of the urban settlement, tower patterns, my expectation is that you use this pattern also. For example, in the case of business as usual, I don't know, I make only island or only repetition and so on.
Thanks for presentation. I like this presentation. I like also how you use socio-demographic data. I appreciate the presentation of business of usual scenario, and I ask you if you consider the last slide your alternative scenario, your suggestion about alternative scenario, because it wasn't clear for me if this for you is the alternative scenario. But obviously you are using, I think, data from 2011, and so this is the current scenario that you compare with the business as usual scenario, and you put in evidence the housing and the demand of housing, so what happened in the business as usual scenario in 2031. So, is it correct, my interpretation? This is an alternative scenario, and you have before.
We shown how bad it would be.
Here? No, this is subject. Okay.
Yeah, here.
This is probably the business. About.
It's business as usual scenario, but we consider